Hello everyone, I'm Xand and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be making my favorite dish of all time, probably, and that is carbonara. It's important to say that what I'm going to show you now is not some sort of master recipe. There are variations of this dish from all over Italy. Even in Rome you'll find different versions of it, but based on all the recipes I've read, all the videos I've watched, what I've got to here I think is pretty close to classic. That comes from the ingredients I've chosen and the techniques I'm going to use. So to start with, a pasta. Today I am using bucatini. You'll probably see carbonara made with spaghetti more than any other pasta, but you pretty have free reign in terms of which pasta shape you choose. I like bucatini not because it's any better than spaghetti, it's just I prefer it. But I've seen carbonara made with rigatoni, I've seen it made with pappardelle, both of which sound like awesome options. One thing I'll say about pasta for carbonara is that you should probably avoid freshly made egg pasta, and I know that sounds counterintuitive because what could be better, but because so much of the sauce is egg, having an egg noodle I just think will be super rich and probably a bit much. I've had it once before, and it's very, very rich, and yes, this is a rich dish, but that kind of like takes it to a level beyond where I was happy with. So I would recommend just run-of-the-mill dried pasta. That said, if you're doing dried pasta, if you can, I would get a slightly more expensive dried pasta that's been extruded through a copper die. And what that does is it gives the pasta a sort of rough texture. And the benefit of that is that it clings onto sauce a bit better than the sort of mass-produced pasta that's extruded through aluminium, which has a super glossy finish. Basically, the rough edge of this allows it to cling onto sauce a bit better. It releases more starch into the pasta cooking water, which in turn will help you thicken your sauce. So basically, it contributes to a lot of positive things in the dish. That said, if you can't get expensive pasta, it's no big deal. Using spaghetti off any supermarket shelf will be perfectly fine. Then let's talk about eggs. Eggs are basically what makes this pasta so creamy. I use 1 egg yolk per 100 grams of pasta that I'm cooking. I'm going to do 300 grams of pasta, which should be like quite generous portions for 2 people. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the whites out from 2 of the eggs. I'm going to do 1 whole egg and 2 egg yolks. Just on eggs, these are free range pasture reared egg, well, from chickens that are free range and pasture reared, but honestly any egg will be fine. Then we're talking about cheese. We've got 2 cheeses here. We've got Pecorino Romano, which you can probably guess is a Roman cheese. It's quite salty, which is important because we're not actually adding any salt to the sauce at all. It's a sheep's milk cheese, and it's the one that's kind of most traditionally associated with carbonara. And then we have Parmigiano Reggiano, Parmesan, which I think everyone's familiar with, also commonly used in this dish. I'm using both in equal amounts, and they complement each other nicely, but you can use either. You can use one or the other, you can use both, but don't use the powdered stuff because it's trash. And then we're talking about meat. So this interesting hunk of meat here is a piece of guanciale. Guanciale is the pork jowl. It's cured pork jowl, which is essentially the pig cheek. It's the thing that's traditionally associated with carbonara, and you'll notice it's got a huge amount of fat. And that's important because you don't actually use any cooking fat in this dish. It's all, you cook everything in the fat that renders out of the guanciale, and that's an important thing to note. That said, although this is the traditional thing to use, in a pinch you can use pancetta, and you can use bacon if you really need to. You do lose out a lot of the flavor and the funk that you get from the guanciale, but honestly, I'm sure you'll still make a delicious dish if you have to use pancetta or bacon. You may have to add a little bit of maybe olive oil or something into the pan, just because those other two might not have as much of a fat content in them. But yeah, guanciale is traditional, but pancetta and bacon, fine. And then finally, we have black pepper. Always freshly grind your black pepper. That's just a blanket rule for no matter what you're cooking. It's important in carbonara because it adds a little bit of heat, a little bit of spice, a little bit of flavor, but it also, really importantly, cuts through the richness that you're getting from the cheese and the egg yolks and the meat. This just helps neutralize that a little bit. Those are the ingredients. So before I touch any of this, I'm going to get a big pot of water on the stove to start cooking our pasta. So we're going to get a big pot. We are going to add enough water to cook our pasta in. And then we're going to get it onto the stove. And because we've got quite a salty sauce going on here, we've got the pecorino, we've got the guanciale, both are quite salty by themselves. I'm not going to make this pasta water as salty as I would normally. There's an old saying, like, pasta water should be as salty as the sea. But with this one, I'm just going to do a sort of healthy pinch. Maybe a little bit more, and the rest of the salt we'll get from the sauce. So we're going to do the sauce next. So let's just clear our way out here. Okay, so first thing first, I'm going to crack some eggs. I'm going to go 1 whole egg. And then 2 egg yolks. Cool. And then we're going to whisk that. We're not trying to work a huge amount of air in there. We're just trying to get the egg whites and the yolks completely combined. Cool. Now we've done that, we're gonna grate about a 1/4 cup of each pecorino and parmesan into the egg mixture. I am just eyeballing it, but yeah, about a 1/4 cup is basic measurement that I would work towards if you're a person who's inclined to measure everything out when they're cooking. I am not. So there's my 1/4 cup, a little treat for me. And then we're going to do another 1/4 cup, this time parmesan. Okay, that's about right. And then I'm going to add quite a significant amount, probably like a teaspoon, of fresh cracked black pepper. So that's what that looks like. And then we're just going to make sure that that's all combined into a sort of consistent sauce. So this actually doesn't really get cooked at all, and I know that weirds people out because there's egg in there, but if you do it properly, you do bring this up to a temperature, which I think is about 65 degrees Celsius, in which it becomes like completely safe to eat the eggs. Cool. So that's the sauce. Now we are going to chop the guanciale. I'm going to start by slicing about 1/2 centimeter thick. Slices like that. I think I'll do 4 of these. That should be about 100 grams. But it really is up to you. Like, if you want more meat, you want less meat, that's fine. I'm just going to take off the skin. Don't want to take off too much of the fat when you are trimming the skin off. Go in the bin. And then I'm just going to stack these and chop them into cubes that are, I don't know, about 1/2 centimeter as well. So you're ending up with sort of rough cubes this size. It's not a huge deal. You don't want them to be too small, otherwise too much of the fat will render out and get a bit too crispy. But again, it's one of those things that it's up to you and your taste on how you prepare it. Okay, now we're ready to start using some heat. It all happens pretty quickly after this point, so make sure you have everything ready before you start cooking anything. We're going to add the guanciale to a cold pan. The reason we're doing that is so as the pan heats up, the fat starts rendering out of it without actually charring or cooking it too much. Now that the guanciale is in, we're going to add our 300 grams of bucatini into the pot. You want to make sure that you get all of your pasta submerged as quickly as possible so that it cooks evenly. You don't want half of your pasta al dente and half of it overcooked. Okay, that was a mission, but it's worth it. And you can see now, as the pan starts to heat up, the guanciale is starting to sizzle a little bit, the fat's starting to turn translucent, and you can see it's already releasing a bunch of fat into the pan. I'm just going to keep an eye on that, make sure it doesn't overcook. It's important that when you're cooking the guanciale and the pasta, to keep it moving, to make sure that you're crisping all the sides evenly. Same goes for the pasta. You want to keep it moving so it's not clumping at all, and it's all cooking evenly. Okay, so guanciale is pretty good and crispy. You don't want it to be brown, or at least not dark brown. You want a bit of golden color on there. But that guanciale is there, so I'm going to kill the heat on that pan, and I'm actually going to move it over here. I'm going to tilt it. I'm going to keep the guanciale at the top of the pan, and I'm going to leave the fat collected at the bottom, because if you leave it sitting in its fat, it actually sogs up a little, and no one wants soggy guanciale. You want crispy bits of meaty goodness. This pasta's still got a little bit of time to go. Just a few minutes, and that's a good thing, because we want the pan with the guanciale in it to cool down a bit. Because essentially we're going to assemble everything inside that pan, and we're going to use the residual heat in that pan to cook the eggs through, but not scramble them. because if that pan is too hot, you dump the eggs in, you're going to get scrambled eggs. Okay, so it looks like we have arrived on the bucatini. It's looking nice and loose, but not overcooked. And the pan with the guanciale, I think, has cooled down enough. Yep. So what we're going to do next is we're going to transfer the pasta straight from the pot that it cooked in into the pan, and what that does is it takes a bunch of that starchy water alongside, and that's going to help us emulsify the sauce in the pan with the guanciale. So I'm just going to transfer it straight across, and you hear just a slightest sizzle, which is kind of what we're looking for. Oops, oh well, I lost a man. Okay, I'm going to kill the heat on there and just move it out the way. And now we're just going to toss the pasta in this fat so that it coats all the noodles and starts to turn into a little bit of an emulsified sauce. So we've got the bacon fat, well, the guanciale fat, we've got the starchy pasta water, and those two things are working together to create an emulsion. And what helps that, one sec, let me just grab a quick measuring cup, is if we can take a bit of the pasta water and add it into the pan to help control consistency. Ooh, making a bloody mess. Okay, so once you can see a bit of a glossy layer on top of the pasta, means we can add our egg mixture. So remember, this is 1 whole egg, 2 egg yolks, and about a 1/4 cup each of pecorino romano and parmigiano, plus a bunch of black pepper. So we're going to add that in, and then we're just going to toss again. And you can see a sauce slowly come together. And as I said, you can control the consistency of the sauce by adding a little bit more of that starchy pasta water until you've tossed it to the point that it's beautiful and glossy. See, there's a beautiful sauce that's formed in the pan, and you'll notice that that is a beautiful creamy pasta that required absolutely no cream to make. Cool. Now we've got a nice glossy sauce on our pasta, and we're going to plate it up. Just going to grab a bowl. Grab a nice big twist of pasta. We're going to make sure we get all the good bits, i.e. some crispy bits of guanciale. And we're going to finish that with another little bit of pecorino, and a crack of black pepper. And there you have it. My favorite dish of all time, carbonara. I'm going to tuck in. Incredibly creamy, glossy sauce. Carbonara is characterized. Pepper got me in the throat. Which is what it's supposed to do. Guanciale is nice and crunchy without being tough. You get plenty of salt, even though we added no actual salt to the sauce. And yeah, that's just absolutely delicious, if I may say so. If I did anything wrong, please let me know in the comments, but be nice. I will do my best to make reparations for any crimes against Italy that I may have committed. And thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.